Good afternoon and welcome back. Kent Bain with Nine Business Group and Elevate Chat. We have the pleasure this afternoon of Tony Quinlan joining us. Tony, please welcome. Please introduce yourself and your company. What makes you different? What sets you apart and why people buy from you?
Hey, Ken. Yeah, Tony Quinlan. Thanks for the opportunity to sit in this afternoon and have a brief chat with you about who I am and who Alexander Valve and Supply is, and more importantly, how we're connected with the Alexander First Nation and some of the opportunities that we've got going along and going on, and how we're bringing value back to the nation members from both a work perspective and an economic development perspective. So your quick first question about who we are and what makes us different in the marketplace. So I'm the COO of Alexander Valve and Supply. I also have a part-time role working directly with the Alexander First Nation as a part of their business development group. So we have a unique proposition in today's marketplace relative to the extreme amount of interest that client companies around the Alberta Heartland region here in central Alberta. There's a strong drive to grow Indigenous businesses for client activities that are happening out of the Heartland. The Alexander First Nation is positioned very strategically relative to the Heartland. They're about 20 minutes away, or as the elders would say, a smoke away. And I don't mean a cigarette. It's actually a cultural reference given the nation's strong beliefs and ties to tobacco as a gift and trading mechanism. So yeah, we've got a strong opportunity. The nation itself is getting inundated with requests, both from the clients and from individual business to either joint venture or collaborate. So how are we different? We're obviously being an Indigenous focused organization, plus with the nation. We've got a strong opportunity to really bring a lot of economic benefit, as I mentioned, to the nation and their members. So we're different by our beliefs and values in that we're not going to run out and just take any opportunity that comes up. We have to be strategic about the values of the nation members and applying them to the businesses and the opportunities that present themselves, but certainly recognizing that those businesses and opportunities have to bring that value back to the nation, whether it's jobs at the nation or opportunities for nation members within close proximity of their reserve and homeland to be able to work and come home every day and still maintain a family lifestyle.
Fascinating. How long have you been with the First Nations, and what has been your biggest challenge? How did you tackle it? How did you resolve it? What's the outcome today?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So overall, I've been in the industry, the oil and gas sector specifically, for 30 years. Spent a number of years on the client side working with companies like Suncor and Enbridge and ATCO, running their supply chains. So I had a real good insight into understanding, some of the challenges that Indigenous businesses, at least back in the early days of my career, the challenges that Indigenous businesses went through to try and break into a marketplace that predominantly is controlled by non-Indigenous business. And in the Alberta marketplace, especially around some of the material supply arenas that the nation is starting to get into, there's a lot of American-based companies up here that have Canadian satellite operations, but their head office is in the U.S. And that's a tremendous difficulty for nation business to compete against when U.S. organizations are obviously focused on shareholder value and bottom line, right, metrics. So yeah, so we're really excited about the opportunities that are presented and hopefully helping them from a nation side, growing their business with my 30 years experience, being able to identify strategic opportunities that when they come along, we do analysts and cash flow analysis, perspectives, and kind of high level deep dives on business opportunities to determine what brings the most value to the nation, and then how we can proceed with them either in a direct nation-owned 100% entity philosophy or in a joint venture philosophy.
Cool. What is one thing now that you've kind of learned recently that you wish you would have known when you entered this path or when you started in business?
Well, if you see my gray hair, I've entered the business a long time ago. So when I entered 30 years ago, I was a junior in all senses and aspects of the word, green as they come. The 30 years have taught me to be more mindful and respectful of the people that you're working with, because as I found in my career, as broad sweeping as oil and gas sector is, and I've had the opportunity to work, in Alberta primarily, but throughout the country and even in different places in North America. you always end up back at some point in time to the same group of people at some point in time that you started out with. So the one thing I have learned is, at every point in time, treat everyone with respect, from a business perspective, and more importantly, from a personal perspective, because you never know when that person 20 years ago was going to be the person you're either calling upon to have a collaborative conversation with, or more importantly, the person who you have to sit down and have a conversation with and explain how an issue may have not gone their way because you were a provider of a service to them. And having that strong relationship still in play goes a long way to making opportunities quite realistic. And when you're dealing with less than ideal situations, making those tough conversations more palatable and reasonable.
What's interesting, I mean, I moved here in 98, and Calgary back then, I think, was still only 650,000 people. It's a community now of 1.2 million-ish, whatever the number is. But you're saying even now, 20 years, and when Calgary was the small city, that our reputation stands, and what goes around comes around, and people remember?
Well, 100%. It's funny you mentioned that. So I lived when I first moved, I moved from Newfoundland. That's where I'm from originally. That's when I went to school there. And I lived every Newfoundlander's dream, and I went to Fort McMurray. And of course, I had family up there, and that's kind of what the draw was. And there was an opportunity at a young age to kind of get into a new marketplace. I met people then, back, that would have been, late 80s, early 90s. I met people then that I established relationships with that I had not seen in 25 years that I've reestablished relationships with.
Wow.
And again, it was all from the premise of being able to make sure that the respect that you gave then will always be the respect that you still give them now. And that respect you showed them 25 years ago is the respect that they would be giving back to you today. So it's, I always describe it as like planting a seed. Every conversation is a good conversation, and you should take advantage of every conversation, if nothing else, to gain a little insight in the individual you're talking to. Or if it's a business conversation, pay attention to a little nugget inside that conversation that you may find either advantageous or something that perhaps the person you're talking to may have a problem that that inadvertently you may help them solve. I mean, I'll give you a great example. So 3 weeks ago, I was on vacation. And I met an individual on vacation who was a business, he calls himself a serial entrepreneur, not a serial killer, a serial entrepreneur. And him and I connect. I walked into his juice bar in the town we were in, and we connected instantaneously. 3 weeks later, I'm having a conference call with him and a member of the Edmonton marketplace who I had not seen in 20 years, but who this individual on my vacation reminded me of the guy here in Edmonton. I connected the two of them and me in a conversation today, and we had 15 takeaways from that conversation for business development opportunities. So the individual who I brought into the conversation from here in Edmonton, I hadn't talked to in 20 years. But the gentleman here is Ernie. The guy on vacation was Peter. Peter reminded me so much of Ernie. I was drawn to the need to reach out to Ernie. Him and I had a good relationship 20 years ago. Fast forward to today, the ability to pick up the phone quickly, say, Ernie, you have to meet Peter. Quick conversation. And like I said, we're a dozen opportunities into a conversation that happened today with some serious pursuit opportunities. So the ability to stay connected, but to respect that connection, I think is one of the most important things that in my 30 years, is probably one of the most important things that I would encourage anyone and everyone to focus on.
Well, I think we're going to make that the highlight of the interview. Just the importance of reputation and connections. Yeah,
exactly. I was going to say, it's a great way to say it. It's the importance of relationship development, recognizing the need to always foster those. And if nothing else, always treat the person across the table from you with respect. You may not like what you're hearing from them. There may be tough decisions that they're making on their side that you don't agree with, but just recognize it's from a business perspective and not from a personal perspective.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. If there was a pirate in your business, a thief, what would they be stealing?
When you sent me that one, I had to stop and think about that for a second. So Alexander Valve and Supply is in the distribution business. So we distribute valves and we do services as well. And we're establishing a small manufacturing facility out at the Alexander First Nation. So if I was to say if there was a thief in my office here and would they be stealing, I think it would be the intellectual property and the ideas that we're talking about to help grow the nation. I was in a meeting last week with nation leadership and a not to be named client, and the client was looking for ways to work with the nation. And we had given them a couple of ideas, and one of them is a business entity that we're looking to set up under the guise and leadership of Alexander First Nation. And it's going to be a 100% community-owned business. But it's a very unique business model. And we're talking to our clients, like the Dows of the world. We're talking to them at an enterprise-wide level for supply of the products that we're going to be putting into this business model. So when we're talking to this unnamed client, they're talking about how they love that idea so much with us that they were going to another community in British Columbia and having the same conversation, to which we had to politely stop them and say, guys, the idea that we're talking about, when we go talk to the Dows of the world and the Shells of the world, we're talking to them about global supply, so enterprise-wide opportunities. So we want to change the landscape for the nation as it relates to the concept of business, right? So nations historically have been kind of boxed into this, the clients will work with the nations inside their region. So, you have a reservation, Alexander First Nation is 20 minutes north of St. Albert. They've got 1,200 people out there, another 1,200 people in the Edmonton area. They have the reserve out there. The clients think about the reserve and the businesses the work that's happening relative to the reserve location, but kind of keeping those opportunities there. When we talk to Shell and we talk to Dow, we're saying, well, we're not interested in supplying your facility at Fort Saskatchewan. We're talking about global, and we have partners that can do that with us. So when they took that idea and went to the other nation in BC, we were like, whoa, that's some intellectual property that we shared with you under an NDA that, we really don't want everyone else out replicating that, because then it cross-pollinates with some of the clients in their area who are the very same clients that we're talking about. So it's not like we're trying to hoard the opportunity. We're just trying to help that client say, the one that kind of went across the line there, to say you have to be cognizant of the fact that there are opportunities for those nations, but think about those nations relative to their client base and how you can help them there from that same enterprise-wide level. But don't take our idea and just go with copy paste it and stick it out there, because some of the same clients that we're talking to here are out there as well. And now you're just going to create a confusion for the clients that we're dealing with, because now they have to make choices, and those choices are going to put us right back into that regional box of supply, which we're trying to break out of for the nations, that in an effort to try and create more revenue and opportunity for the nations.
Well said. Thank you. What is your definition of a successful business?
Oh, well, it's got people who want to work. And what I mean by that, Kent, is people are happy to come to work every day. They don't wake up every morning thinking, I have to trudge through the snow to get in my car, to scrape the windows off, to come to work when it's 30 below. We want to create an environment where people are happy. If we're profitable, we're profitable. Obviously, we want to be profitable, because if we're not, then we're not in business. But, the profitability comes in conjunction with the happiness and the hard work of the employees of the business. To give you an example, we have a 100,000 square foot facility here at our Edmonton office. We've got a 5,000 square foot gym upstairs. I could take you on a tour and open the door of my office. The guys, the warehouse guys in the back during lunchtime have retroed our training facility into a mini paddle. What do you call that? Paddle tennis?
Table tennis, ping pong?
No, it's paddle tennis. It's not tennis. It's kind of what the seniors play. I can't think of the name of it.
Oh, pickleball.
Pickleball. Yes, they've made a pickleball court out in our training center, and during lunchtime they come out and all I hear is the bang of the ball off the paddle, and it brings such a smile on my face, because it's a bunch of young kids that are out there just, having the ability to be free and creative with what they do. They come out, they spend an hour having some fun, burn off a little energy, and then they go back to work with a smile on their face. And yeah, it's trying to create a happy environment that the people want to come to. In the 2.5 years I've been here, we haven't had a single person leave the company. And, we've had a lot of successes there, and we've actually expanded our employee base by 20%. So these are the types of things that we want to focus on. So
That's a great definition. I'll make sure I'll add you to the quote when I write the book and include that one. Thank you. My favorite question, just to close it out. What do you want to be known for?
Yeah, I saw that one too. That's a great question, because I always look at myself as the guy in the background. I don't run out to be the guy in the spotlight. I don't need that. I spend a lot of time behind the scenes, bringing people together in a connectivity perspective. The earlier example I mentioned about the gentleman that I met on my vacation and the local guy here, just recognizing the ability to connect people at points in time where I see value, whether it's personal or business, it doesn't really matter. So to want to be known for is someone who very well connected, and connected people for the right reasons. And someone who can demonstrate that type of ability, but also, not be the type of guy who's, expecting a handout every time it happens, because that's the last thing myself and the people that I work with and people that I hire here, and I want them to have the same philosophy is, we're all in this together. Let's be collaborative, always share ideas. So from my mindset is, I want to be known as the type of guy that can help people connect and help people grow businesses and create opportunities for themselves and be happy at the end of the day when they go home.
Fantastic. Thanks again for your time. Just before we close off, one last plug for Alexander Valve, what you guys do, where can we find you, where we get more information for the people that would want to buy from you guys.
Sure, I appreciate that, Ken. Yeah, so thank you again for the opportunity to sit and chat with you today. Great pleasure. Again, Tony Quinlan, I'm the COO of Alexander Valve and Supply. So we are a Indigenous community-owned valve supply and distribution business and service-oriented business here in the Edmonton region. So we service all facets of valve supply in the province of Alberta and in British Columbia as well. We are capable of supplying valve materials internationally. We have had relationships with clients in Mexico and in the US, and we're expanding our base a little bit into Latin America. So we're really focused on growth and strategy. And, we recognize that as from what we can ascertain from our searches, we're the only expansive community-owned Indigenous valve distribution business in Canada. We actually have a small valve manufacturing arm out at the Alexander First Nation itself. So it's the first of its kind in the country as well. So from that perspective, our focus is really on providing value to our clients, both from from a material perspective and also from ESG perspective. And they're always looking for opportunities to engage Indigenous business. The First Nation, Alexander First Nation, took the opportunity to create something unique with this business model. And it has become the platform for many other business models that will be rolling out here in the coming months and over the next year. So I thank you again, Ken. Great pleasure. Look forward to seeing your work in the future. And I'll only ask for a small royalty on any phrases you use in that book.
Absolutely. One penny per word per book.
Per book.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks again, pal. All the best, eh?
You're welcome.